Just 1 minute, please. Fare il fotografo nel treno, non è che sto sentendo da fuori.
You drinks.
You gotta come to my office. I got all my fresh from Florida alcohol in my office.
As long as I'm on a diet.
But it's fresh from Florida.
We're live.
Oh, we're live. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute.
He's coming? There you go.
Is anybody else under? Oh, wait.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Good morning, everybody, and thank you again for tuning in. Before we start, I just want to go through some of the latest numbers that we have. On August 18th, we had 15,402 new cases in Florida per the CDC. Cumulative, 2.994 million. August 18th, 8 new deaths per Florida CDC. August 20th, 17,198 COVID-19 hospitalizations in Florida per the HHS. 86.1% of Florida inpatient beds are in use. 29.3% in use of COVID-19. August 20th, 3,584 Florida ICU beds are in use per HHS. 93.9% of Florida ICU beds are in use. 53.53% COVID-19. August 19th, 50.9% of Florida now fully vaccinated per the CDC. Latest numbers for Miami-Dade. August 19th, 64.2% of Miami-Dade residents fully vaccinated. August 18th, 21,655 new cases in the last 7 days. August 16th, 14.16 positivity rate in the last 7 days. August 16th, testing volume of 83,400 in the last 7 days. August 17th, 1,617 COVID hospitalization admissions in the last 7 days. August 17th, also 29.43% of beds in use of COVID patients in the last 7 days, up 3.16%. August 17th, 38.6% of ICU beds used for COVID patients in the last 7 days, up 8.81%. Floridians, this is an emergency. Florida hospitals are at capacity. Miami-Dade and Broward have been among the leading counties in the nation for new COVID-19 hospitalization admissions, according to HHS. More than 40,000 Floridians have lost their lives. Now, I've had an opportunity to speak to so many of our healthcare workers across the entire state, from administrators to doctors to nurses. They're scared. They're at capacity, and they need help. They cannot keep this up. We are seeing hospitals overrun COVID patients. We're seeing ambulances lining up to get into hospitals in Lakeland. We are at an emergency situation, and everybody needs to take this seriously. This is also about our children's lives. Thousands of students are quarantined across the entire state, and the governor continues to threaten local officials who are trying to keep our students safe. You know, this is something that is impacting every single family in the state of Florida, making the really hard decisions of whether or not to put their kids in school if there are not masks required in the classroom. Parents having to make those tough decisions when their kids are quarantined, what to do with them, if they have to go back to work, making these decisions. The economic impact on these parents of either having to stay home from work or potentially lose their jobs. And what happens when these kids, when they're home from quarantining? There's no virtual learning. So they're sitting at home, losing time with their friends and their teachers in valuable educational experiences. We've got to do better. We've got to do this together. And we've got to do the right thing. And so that's why I'm so proud of Miami-Dade, of Broward, of Palm Beach County, of Hillsborough, of Alachua. Orange County is next, potentially Sarasota is next. We are going to win this when we do this together. And of course, the White House has our backs. And we saw just last night that a judge denied the state's motion to dismiss a lawsuit that challenges the governor's school mask ban. Governor, follow the Texas governor and move on from this. This is something that we've got to work together on to protect our children. Miami-Dade is so fortunate to have leadership like Senator Jones, who are standing up and doing what's right, from protecting our students in schools to encouraging those with vaccine hesitancy, the importance of getting the shot. And we all need to pitch in to end this pandemic together. I continue to say this, and I continue to be a broken record. Follow the CDC guidelines on wearing masks. Follow the law, follow the rules when it comes to getting the vaccine. Follow your doctor's advice. Go and talk to your healthcare experts. They will tell you the only way to get through this pandemic is getting the vaccine, masking up, being responsible. And I will continue to say that we do not live in an isolated society. Love thy neighbor. That means that you have to not just do it for yourself, do it for your community. That's the only way that our economy is going to stay on track, the only way that our kids are going to stay in school, the only way that our healthcare system isn't going to be shattered by what is happening in our hospitals and our medical providers. So now I'd like to turn it over to my good friend, Senator Jones.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Freed, for your leadership that you have provided here within the state of Florida to giving not only the accurate numbers, but even being transparent in what's happening here within the state of Florida. You know, it wasn't long ago that the major media outlets across this country were publishing stories, and they're proclaiming that our governor, DeSantis, that he had won the pandemic, or deserved an apology from pundits and public health experts who have planned and have panned out this laissez-faire approach to the coronavirus. But those notions have aged poorly, as we can see every day here within the state of Florida, because as we are struggling with the spike in COVID-19 hospitalizations that DeSantis seems particularly unequipped to handle. But thank God that we have leadership within counties like Miami-Dade County, like Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, who has taken this not only very seriously, but she has taken the lives of our children and the families extremely seriously. The pandemic has reached another crisis stage. The number of new infections in Florida continues its record-breaking spike with an average last week of more than 21,600 per day, which is the third consecutive weekly record, and we have experienced the highest level of hospitalization since the start of the pandemic. These charts offer a snapshot of what's happening here in Florida, where most masking and social distancing requirements are a thing of the past, so they say. But no, masking, social distancing is something that we need to continue right now. Why? Not because of politics, but because the experts have asked us to do it. They reflect the battering COVID is wrecking on Florida's healthcare system, where half of the ICU beds in the state are taken up by COVID patients, a rate second only to Mississippi. And looking at Alabama, I don't know if you saw, but Alabama has run out of ICU beds. We don't want to go into this predicament. Florida, we did not have to land into the predicament that we're in right now. Our local school boards should make public health its chief concern, even in the face of the political pressure that is coming out of the governor's mansion and the anti-mask Republicans in Tallahassee. The school boards are reacting to a surge of infectious spread, and its top priority must be to make in-classroom instruction safe. And as a former classroom teacher, I can tell you, I understand the teacher's concern. I understand why teachers are worried to be in a classroom with 25 to 30 students and not being masked, because they too have to go back home to their families. Are my Republican colleagues not concerned about the safety and the lives of those parents, of those teachers, of those principals, of those custodians? That is what we should be working together on. How did COVID become this political punching bag that we are now going back and forth, and we should be on the front lines talking about unemployment. We should be on the front lines talking about things that matters, the homelessness crisis, the gun crisis that we're dealing with. But we're not doing that. We're dealing with this from a perspective to where Donald Trump's America is still lingering around in Florida, and mask has become the new political talking point. But we are in this together. And this is the message that I want to hope that we can get across. And our Commissioner of Agriculture, she has traveled this state to let it be known that we are in this together. And we all will continue to deal with the challenges that we face when we're dealing with COVID-19. And we want all of you to stay healthy and safe as we try to get our lives back up and going. Why the vaccines are important. COVID-19 has significantly impacted every community in our state. Just yesterday, the city of Miami Gardens opened up a new vaccine spot right up the street. Why? Because it's important, not just for this community, but the surrounding communities all around. Nearly all families have felt the impacts of this unprecedented health crisis, particularly in minority communities. Right here, you see in Miami Gardens, which is the largest black district here within the state of Florida and the third largest within the country. The COVID-19 vaccines are critical in helping us overcome this pandemic. It is the best and fastest way for us to safely get back to life and activities with our family, friends, and our loved ones. And it's very important that as many people as possible are vaccinated throughout the state to help protect our families and communities. And last but not least, the masking. Masks or face coverings should be worn in indoor public spaces and anytime in public spaces. Wearing a mask is about protecting others. When you wear a mask, you protect others, and when others wear a mask, they protect you also. It's not a substitute for maintaining physical distance or social distancing. We should all do both. I close with this, that in my time in the legislature, in the last 9 years, I have never seen that when a healthcare crisis now has placed us to become so polarized in politics, when it should never have come to this point. My hope is that as we continue to move forward, as we prepare to go into committee, and as we prepare to go into a new legislative session, that we will put politics aside and we will put public health at the top. Thank you so much.
So, just to follow Senator Jones, please get the vaccine. We know that it is saving lives, and the only way that we're going to keep our economy going. We're already seeing dips last month that was reported by the Retail Federation of less people participating in going out and shopping and going to our stores. This will have a trickle-down impact on our economy, on our healthcare system, on our schools, on our everyday ways of life. None of us want to wear these masks anymore. None of us want to not go to concerts and go to theme parks and spend time in big parties for families and weddings. But unfortunately, those who are not being vaccinated are preventing the rest of us from getting on with our normal lives. Talk to people who haven't been vaccinated. Tell your stories if you got sick and you've lost loved ones. To share those messages, because we've got to do this together. And we got to make sure that we are putting our communities together first. Thank you. Our health is tied to getting our health and our economy are tied together. So we got to do this together. So.
Commissioner, you helped open up the Regeneron site yesterday in Tampa. What do you make of Regeneron? Do you think it's working, and do you support that?
Yeah, so certainly I am not a healthcare expert. I am following that of medical professionals. And so what we have been told from medical professionals is that if your doctor says go to the hospital and follow their advice and recommend this treatment, then that's what you're supposed to do. And so hopefully this will save lives, but this is not, make this very, very clear, this does not replace getting the vaccine. The vaccine and also the actual economic impact of getting, waiting, having to go in and get these shots is additional expenses to our economic aspects, to our healthcare. So sure, if that is what is used in the hospitals, which has been being used in the hospitals for quite some time now. So I would encourage people to get the vaccine, and if you do get sick, then obviously this is another alternative treatment.
Yeah, Commissioner, let me ask you both if I could. The governor has said as recently as yesterday, unequivocally, that these 5 school districts in Florida that have defied the mask mandate are simply breaking the law, and they're going to be punished. Do you think that, number one, do you think, are these districts breaking the law? Is there some way that this is legal or morally just? What do you think?
So I will take that. The governor's executive order, in my opinion, and I think will be the opinions of the courts, is not constitutional. That the Constitution, it clearly dictates that the health and wellness of our children is to the school boards. These are duly elected individuals in our communities. And we are not under a state of emergency. So for the governor to have issued this executive order and create law that is left to my dear friends in the legislature, and then trying to remove or penalize for breaking a law, I think the courts will have a different opinion of what that executive order.
Chip, what do you think?
Yeah, and just to piggyback off Commissioner Freed, the governor is a Harvard Law School graduate, so he is extremely clear on what is law and what is not law. And I'm no attorney, but I do pride myself in being a great avid reader. The governor knows that this is not illegal, what these school boards and school districts are doing. This is him feeding into a base and allowing his base to be the ones to rally him up to say that this is right in their eyes when he knows good and well that it's not. The legislature, when we convene together, I wouldn't be surprised if someone files a bill that will now deal with this. Then when it's signed into law, then it will become law. But as of right now, as Commissioner Freed said, they can issue a state of emergency or anything of that nature. And so now we're in this predicament to where all of this is politics. That's all it is. And the governor knows it.
And I'd like to also refer to people, for those in the legal profession, to look up NAACP versus the Board of Regents. That was back from when Jeb Bush tried to do something very similar. And the courts came down with an opinion that that was not legal.
The governor mentioned a parental bill of rights that was approved by the legislature that gives parents the right. I'm sorry, Ana Pueblo with Telemundo. Does that make it law then?
Thank you so much. Within that bill, the Parents' Bill of Rights, it had nothing to do with when it comes to masking at all. And I don't know the entire nuances of that bill, but the Parents' Bill of Rights did not deal with this in that perspective when it's talking about this public health crisis in which we're dealing with.
Well, the issue, if I may get both of you to respond, I mean, the governor says this is about personal freedom, about liberty, and that by mandating masks, that the state government is taking away the liberty and the choice, the right of parents to decide for their children. What do you say to that?
So, a couple of things. First and foremost, when a child goes into a school setting, they have to get a note to leave the classroom to use the restroom. That they can't, there's certain dress codes they can't wear in school. And there's certain times when the parameters of how to get checked out of school, of how to call in when you're sick. There's all of these restrictions that are already put into schools to make sure that our kids are safe, that there is a productive educational environment. And what happens to the freedoms and the liberties of the kids that have some type of disability, that they can't wear a mask? And so now you're now saying to them, your freedoms and your liberties to go to school is less than the other families. And so to say that we are taking away people's freedoms, what about the other parents that are having to make the choices about whether or not to send their kids back because they don't feel safe? So you're choosing one set of people's freedoms over another's. And that's not how the law works. And going back to even the same exact thing, like fundamentals of the Constitution. I've got freedom of speech. I can't come into this room and scream fire. That there are certain things that we all live in a society, and there is a constitution, but there's also, it's not complete, open-ended. There are restrictions on even speech. And so to say that this is about freedom, what about the freedom and liberty of those other kids that are coming into the classroom that don't want to get sick? And we're talking about a mask. We seatbelt our kids in their car seats to keep them healthy and to keep them safe. And and I go to this other example. If you started the first day of class and orientation with parents, and say a preschool, and parents come into a classroom and say, my kid has a really severe peanut allergy, and can you please not send peanut related food items into the classroom? Can you imagine the parent saying, screw that, I'm sending peanuts anyhow? That's just not how society works. We're all in this together, and we gotta make sure that we are protecting everybody's rights. And that is the point of the Constitution, that's the point of the ADA, that's why there's that federal lawsuit, because it's infringing upon those kids' rights to have an educational environment that's safe for them.
And I don't need to add that much, but let's not muddy the waters on what freedom and liberty is. If we want to have a conversation on infringing on freedom and liberties, we can have that discussion at another time. But let's not use this public health crisis to use that as your political push, because that's what's happening right now.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.